talking about not being able to understand things. I've been really we're getting back into the telepathy tapes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's
I need
so
to
good.
catch up. I still have not.
It's so educational too, because they talk about science since like I'm gonna totally butcher this, but like the 1800s. They said that science has revolved around materialism. Basically, anything you can see and touch, it can be studied by science.
Yeah.
Everything outside of materialism is
Theory.
It's theory or it's hocus pocus. It's cringe, not cringe. What do you call it?
Ew, it's so cringe.
I forget. But dude, it's blowing my absolute mind.
Tell me about it.
Okay.
Like the newest updates, because we talked about we talked about the telepathy, and then last week we talked about something else with it.
She was on Joe Rogan talking about the hieroglyphics.
That's what it was.
girl.
Yeah, language.
Cool.
They
The
know
one thing
languages.
that is, which it has her spinning too, is there's this one boy. I think it starts in like episode 3 or 4. His name is Houston, I believe, and he's from Atlanta, and his story is just insane. Like, grew up severely autistic, non-speaking, nonverbal, and mom had 3 other kids, a terrible husband, and she just grew up thinking that he was basically kind of just almost like a vegetable. We were just like, there's no way to communicate with him. There's no way.
There's no hope for like real growth or anything. It was just sustaining. Yeah, that's a bummer.
And she separated from her husband and was living alone, working a ton to provide for the kids. And she like came home one day and she said, "This was the turning point of me seeing that there's something like he can connect to, telepathically." Because she said she was so physically, emotionally, everything tired. And she said, I was so tired. I was shaking. Like, and I just sat on the couch and I was just shaking. Like, she just felt terrible. And her son, Houston, walked downstairs, sat at her feet. And he said he's never done that. He was like in his teens, like 16 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Could be getting this wrong too. This is all secondhand. But sat at his feet, and she said that he moved 24/7, never stopped moving.
Yeah.
Sat at his feet, looked her straight in the eyes, which she said never made eye contact ever, and said, I love you.
Verbally.
And she's
my
never
goodness.
spoken in his life. And she's just like, whoa. And then through that was the beginning, figuring out that he could read people's minds. He could see what they were thinking. And through the whole, what do you call it? They call it speaking. Or no, sorry, spelling. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, like
spelling.
Finger spelling.
It's where they have like the tablet or like whatever for them to communicate.
Yeah.
Figuring out that he's like, I've been in here the whole time. That was the first thing he said. Like, I've been in here the whole time. I've been aware this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And she just broke down crying. And it was a terrible thing. He said the worst thing that he felt bad about was that he, earlier in the years when they're still living with their dad, that the dad was abusing the daughter and he wasn't able to speak or communicate that this was happening.
But
so
he
he
knew
felt
it
the whole time.
Torture.
Because he could read the dad's mind.
Yeah.
Right.
But it starts with him talking about this place. He says that he goes to this place with other kids, other people that have this ability of telepathy. They said telepathy is just the tip of the iceberg. It goes way deeper.
When you say go to this place while he's sleeping or
No.
mentally?
Mentally. They call it the hill.
Yeah.
He referred to it as the hill. And he says, we meet there, we teach each other things, we pray for each other. And it's like this community of kids that have this ability. They go to the hill. She's like, wow, that's wild. And then met another kid in Atlanta. His name is John Paul, and they're friends. And he referred to it as the hill as well. And continues on as like, this is a wild concept, right? But then it was her, I believe, 5th episode. Before she released these episodes, she was interviewing this other mom in, where was it?
It was like Texas, right? Like
No, yeah, it might have been. No, it's Chicago. This kid was from Chicago. And the mom's talking like, yeah, he talks about, he goes to this place called the Hill.
Mm-hmm.
No communication with these other people.
They don't know
scary.
each other at all.
They're
Golly, dude.
using the same reference calling it the hill where they go, and they specify it's not like a physical place. It's like not dimensional. It's like it's like a place where their consciousness goes, and they said, but it's like in the shape of a hill. But it's like not dimensional. But this kid from Chicago talks about how he talks to other kids around the world, like one from Denmark, one from Texas, one from like just all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, what does this mean?
Yeah. And is it being tested, like them following up with these people, meeting?
Yeah.
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 So like they're touching base with all these people and somehow they've never had contact with each other.
Yeah. But it's a part that it's proven is all these kids can speak multiple languages. Because all these other kids from all over the world are coming together and they're teaching each other things. An example was it was a 2-year-old non-speaking autistic kid. He could speak 7 languages.
Like what?
That he's never been taught before. And he's 2. And it's not him speaking.
How does
when I
science
say
explain
speaking,
this?
it's him doing the words and stuff on the pad or whatever that is 7 different languages.
Have we seen the videos of them doing the pad touching?
Yeah,
and stuff
I got the Patreon thing to Telepathy
and that's
Tapes.
all legit.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. That's really incredible. Because like that, every time I hear the hill, what do you guys think of? The city on a hill.
Oh yeah.
And it's like that's immediately what I thought of when it was called the hill. I'm like, oh, that's how Jesus talks about the kingdom.
I thought about the hills with
Have eyes.
no, that show from the early 2000s.
I thought of Jonah Hill.
Oh. Wait, Jonah Hill's there? Why is he there?
I was thinking about like the Tower of Babel and how like language split with like an elevated position. It's just interesting that it's come back together in this theory by reassembling in some sort of elevated point.
It's just been messing.
Yeah.
Like
if this is real, if it is true, like then like why aren't we talking about it? What is science at? Like why isn't this on the news? Like,
well, that's what I'm stoked about this podcast, and it's like more and more scientists and teachers and professors that are like, okay, well, there's a lot of proof. Like these people don't know each other, and they all go to this place, and they all call it the hill, and they can speak multiple languages. They can do abilities that are just insane.
Yeah.
They call them spiritual gifts. And I'm excited because eventually they talk about the majority, if not all of them, they interact with Jesus.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. NDEs and this have so much crossover.
Exactly.
And they're completely different experiments. Oh, that's so trippy.
Wow.
But
They interviewed this one professor from Cambridge, and he was actually knighted by the Queen for his studies and whatnot, discoveries. But there's one test that he was into this telepathic stuff since the 1950s, which is crazy because that's like very taboo back then, But there was this one scenario where this severely autistic boy who was almost 100% blind, and he went into the optometrist. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And they figured out that he could see through his mother's eyes.
Yeah, like he could read the thing if he was reading his mom's mind.
Yeah, so his mom was in the room, and there was the letter board, the E and like all that. They said, "Can you read these lines?" And he got everyone right. And it's like, no, this is impossible because you're like 99.9% blind.
I don't get
and
this.
They said, can the mother leave the room? She left, and he couldn't read anything.
Could he see what she was seeing out there?
Yeah. But then they tested it. They did the test even further where they had him do different like cards and stuff like with numbers, letters, colors. Or not him, but the mother who was 5 miles away.
Wow.
And he got everyone right.
So it's nothing to do with like physical proximity. It has everything to do
with
like
they can put their
space.
Consciousness. They can go. They literally cross the world.
That's insane.
Dude, why isn't like Elon just funding this stuff? It's like, let's figure out what humans can do. Let's just study people.
I don't even know if there's anything to study consciousness though.
And is that why it's not big news? Because like, okay, so what can we do with it?
I would be curious.
Well, I think it's still a little taboo. Like people have a real hard time believing it still.
Is it like
even with proof? It's like, okay, this seems like a trick.
Well,
is it like big phone companies? They're just like, listen, if they can communicate across with just their mind, we're out of the business. Apple's like, we make no money.
Yeah, big phone.
I think that there's like probably a painful aspect to it too, because they're probably full of regret with like all of these folks that have come and gone that have been non-speaking, autistic, and no contact has ever been made. You know, it was important.
One of the, his name was John Paul, I believe, in Atlanta. When he was asked, like, how do you feel about people understanding that, like, you have telepathy and other kids like you have telepathy, and he was so excited to let people know that they have these abilities. And one scenario I heard today was this boy who was severely autistic and he could speak, but it was very hard for him to speak. Mm-hmm. And by the age like 17 or something, he chose not to speak because he said that inhibited his telepathy
abilities.
It goes back to the senses.
He said all the function that your brain has to go through for moving your mouth, your tongue, your lips, your teeth, your breath, and like just everything. He said that inhibited my telepathy from being able to fully work.
It makes you wonder if like these silent monks in the hills.
Yeah, that's what I was literally just thinking.
If they ever get that ability. I remember what I was going to say. Does she ever, in her episodes, I would be curious if they did a brain scan on one of these kids. Okay. Yeah. While they're using it to see what parts of the brain illuminate.
Yeah. For a lot of them, it's hard because of like sensory overload. Yeah. Like a lot of these tests have to be pretty isolated because for some of them, if there's multiple people in the room, they can't. They said they literally hear everyone's thoughts at once.
Wow.
So it's not even just their caregivers that they're able to read.
No, yeah. Some of them it's just like, but some of them it just starts off as a caregiver or a mom or a dad, but it looks like it progresses to where anybody.
Wow.
And so it's actually they talk about some teachers that are now coming out and talking about. They said, well, we couldn't speak out about it because we'd be fired and be like, you're crazy for even thinking that this kid is telepathic. But one teacher, she literally had to sometimes tell her student to stop reading her mind because she could hear his voice in her head.
Oh, how do you not?
And
dude,
so it was a permission base. It's like you can talk to me now. And she was the kid was able to talk to the teacher in the head.
But she's not saying that. Like she can literally, she's just thinking, okay, speak to me.
His voice was in her head speaking.
Goodness, dude.
Did she tell the parents?
I think eventually, yeah.
Oh my gosh, like, hey, your kid's talking to my brain.
But even when she was at home, too.
Oh my gosh, she'd be like, hey, what are you having for dinner?
Pretty much. And
hey,
like,
I have a question on question number 13.
But the thing is, too, he was incredible. Like, they just have this understanding of, like, boundaries, too. Because she says, you have to ask my permission.
Oh.
Yeah.
You can't just, and he said, okay.
Yeah. Can't just waddle into someone's brain without consent, dude.
Yeah.
Relax.
So it has to be deliberate then. There's like, it's not just like you're flooded with.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just like talking to like us talking to Andrew, you know, it's just like you can direct the conversation, but if there's a ton of people talking, you can still have a conversation.
Wow.
But if you're trying to hear one person talk and it's just like a bunch of people talking,
well
you know?
articulated, Dad.
Dude, I'm just
Thanks, I'm smart.
I'm just imagining having a conversation like telepathically in a room, and then all of it, you're not laughing in your mind, so you would verbally laugh. I think that's just hilarious. Like if we're in heaven and we're all just speaking telepathically, telling jokes, and then we're just laughing constantly.
Yeah,
it would look insane.
I was fascinated by this whole thing too. It's just like looking back at like if you read the Gospels and how like Jesus says that he knew their thoughts or he knew it was in their heart. It's like,
dude,
that's the ability.
Yeah, dude.
It's not made up. It's like it's like almost like a higher power or something, or a higher
character
form
of God.
Yeah.
Ninjas are butterflies. Did I say ninja? I meant butterfly. The butterfly is no doubt one of God's most beautiful creations.
I said empty your mind.
You